Will it really breed a brave new world under doom? Will the Sorcerer Supreme Doom usher it in for Marvel Comics? Or will it just be another rehashed comic event? Did the MCU do anything new with Captain America? Can anything new really be done with Indiana Jones? Or are we just repeating the same old stories? In this What's News episode, we're going to be asking if there really is anything new under the sun. Can't wait for this one. It's going to be a ton of fun. If you are watching live, so far there isn't anyone watching live yet, but if you do jump on, you want to shout out where you're coming from, we will post it up there, show everyone where our listeners are at right now. For now, though, we'll introduce ourselves. I am Joshua Knoll. I'm a guy who really likes Captain America. I don't think much else needs to be said. I'm working on my master's in Christology and master's legal study, but I like Captain America. And I'm here with my pastor, the one and only Will the Thrill from Chapel Hill, Will Rose.
Yes, it's going, man. Life is full. A lot of spinning plates when it comes to fandoms, when it comes to geeking out on things, when it comes to like family obligations, when it comes to shepherding a healthy but somewhat large congregation of people who don't necessarily see what's going on in the world as brave or new, but some things going on in the world that have them a little scared and timid and nervous, low anxiety out there with the world, and we're here to help guide and manage and shepherd and be a non-anxious presence and help process these things. And so I'm glad to do this podcast with you, Joshua. Man, it's good to be back in the saddle, geeking out about a movie that that I was so happy to go and see and have some popcorn and geek out and have fun. So I can't wait to go do some geekology with it.
Yeah. Well, hey, shout out. We had Jonathan Augustin and Wiggle Babies say hey to us over on YouTube. We appreciate you guys.
Wiggle Babies.
We especially appreciate Jonathan for a few reasons. One of them isn't just because he's listening now and shouted us out, but also I even have it on my outline here. I'm supposed to thank all of our supporters on Patreon, Captivate, and Apple Podcast. Do a special shout out to one of our patrons, who is Jonathan Augustin. Thank you.
That's
Jonathan.
The one? Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
You created that before he hopped on live.
That was awesome.
There it is.
So,
there is a quantum entanglement going on right now.
Oh yeah. And if you guys with your own shout outs, make sure you jump over there on one of those three platforms, Apple Podcasts, Captivate, or Patreon. $3 a month. And you can get your own shout out on the show. And I think it's a lot of fun, personally. I enjoy doing it. So
I like hearing my name. My name.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And with all that, without further ado, we're gonna jump into some of the fun here. We have a lot to talk about and not a lot of time, so we got to start with the lightning round. I am, it's a weird one for me. I just moved into my house, so I'm not doing a lot of new stuff. I'm catching up on a lot of old stuff though. We love you too, Jonathan. No, we catch up on a lot of old stuff. I actually got a Steam Deck for my birthday, so I've downloaded a bunch of video games. One of them we're going to talk about today as cool. Like an actual new game, but a lot of them are old games. Playing some of the old Kingdom Hearts, Ratchet and Clank. I actually just for Will's sake downloaded the original copy of Chain of Memories because they redid the song when they
what's Chain of Memories?
What's
Chain of Memories?
Kingdom Hearts. And now I forgot what I was saying. Give me a second.
Music.
Okay. Yeah. They redid the song when they remastered the game for other platforms, and it's not as good. So now I have the Game Boy version on my Steam Deck and can hear the original version of the song, and it makes me happy. But as far as most of my new stuff is going to be stuff I'm looking forward to. There's a lot of comics. Hunger and the Dust is going to be coming back. We got more Ice Cream Man to look forward to. The Godzilla Marvel stuff coming out soon. I've been enjoying Hyde Street, so really excited to see where that goes. But one thing I do want to especially shout out that I just finished geeking out on. Last episode aired on Valentine's Day. Dexter Original Sin. I love the Dexter series. Not a huge fan of the sequel series, but this was a prequel series. Had a lot of fun. I think Will would have at least appreciated how it definitely highlighted what's the difference of a hero and a villain. when you have the same trauma? Do you decide you want to prevent someone else from that trauma, or make people suffer the way you did? And man, it was a lot of fun. I'll probably harp on that more later on some other things. But lightning round. What's new? What's new with Will Rose?
New with where was I will say that I some of the things I've been geeking out on, and lightning round. What's new with me is we're going to talk about here on this episode, MCU movies, some comics. I will say I'm a huge Saturday Night Live fan, and so this 50th anniversary that just came out, and the 3-hour Saturday Night Live last night, as of recording this, I geeked out so hard. I love the history of Saturday Night Live. I think Saturday Night Live helped curate some of my own. Definitely had a major impact on my own sense of humor, what I find funny, for better or worse. But I'm a huge Saturday Night Live and improv and sketch comedy fan. And the lead up to the 50th anniversary and watching it last night, I couldn't have been more happy. And I thought they did great. So much fun, a lot of nostalgia, but also a lot of funny things. So that's for me. And the World Surf League has started. They've been 2 contests, Pipeline, and then they did a contest at a wave pool in the Middle East. You can look it up. It's so fun. And I've been watching those. And I was on our friend of the show, Ryan Does. I was on his podcast, Skipping Church. Ironically, on a day when I was helping my mom back home, actually skipping church. I only get like 4 Sundays a year. This one was like to help family. And while I skip church, I was able to talk with Ryan about surfing. So if you want to hear my hot takes on surfing and philosophy around it and what it means to me and some funny stories around it, go check out Skipping Church with Ryan Does. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I got to talk about Indiana Jones on there too, which is a fun tie-in. And Ryan was on our show to prepare for a movie we're going to talk about in a little bit. But for now, that does it for our lightning round. So we're going to jump into some of our main topics today. I'm going to start with a light one that Will, I don't think, knows anything about as far as I'm aware.
I'm willing to learn. Willing to learn
about Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. This video game, it is, I think, considered canon. It takes place between Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade.
Nice.
Oh, gosh, it is so much fun. It is a truly wild ride as far as things go. And it's like a callback. You turn it on, you hear that music, and you're like, oh man, yeah, this is Indiana Jones. It was phenomenal. I'm going to break down some of the plot, but not get too much into it. So again, this is what's new. So spoilers are aplenty for these. Shenanigans happen. I'm just going to start all the beginning is now just shenanigans. That's how I'm summarizing the beginning of the plot. But then Indiana Jones sees certain of the biggest religious iconic places, like the Vatican. Yeah, you travel to the Vatican in this game. Cool. All line up to make a perfect circle around the world. And there's this whole kind of myth and whatever around it. You find out some of the stuff has been happening before the places were actually constructed, like the Vatican. There was a stone there before the Vatican existed, apparently. So you're going around, so you get to see a bunch of the other different religious stuff, which is what I've loved about Indiana Jones. It does like a nice, like, here's world religion, not presented well, but presented fun. You know,
There's
so you
worse
travel
things.
the world, do some architects, see different religions, have fun with that. You learned that Nephilim are real, and they are giants, and they work for the Catholic Church. You also, the big thing at the end, this is the spoiler. The reveal at the end is phenomenal. The Great Circle, why it exists, God himself gave Noah, that's right, the Noah, the power of the Great Circle so that he could teleport wherever he wanted across the world to get 2 of each kind of animal for the ark. That's how we did it. The Great Circle was the power that let Noah do this. Of course, bad guy gets power. You have some fun karate fight because this is a video game. You need to have the final boss fight. But, you have a lot of fun with this. You get to set things right. At one point, he does say that it belongs in a museum. It's what he does, So you rehash a lot, but you also kind of rehash some of those video game tropes, the final boss fight, collecting stones, that kind of stuff. I really had a lot of fun with it. The main reason... man, it was so great. So great. The main reasons I want to bring it up, though, especially today, because we're talking about, like, is anything actually new? Harrison Ford himself saw some of the scenes in this game and said that this game is proof that you don't need AI to steal his soul. End quote. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing or what. Like it's like what are we supposed to do with that, Mr. Harrison Ford? you know
Wow.
it was though. It was like him. It was like they had the voice actor wasn't him, but you're going through, it's like, you could have convinced me this is Indiana Jones. And I could see where this is the future of the Indiana Jones franchise. Harrison Ford won't live forever, but we can keep making Indiana Jones games, kind of like the old Tomb Raider games or like the Nathan Drake games. And it's like, I can keep living in this world. But then it's also kind of like, is it ever the same if it's not Harrison Ford? Or does it die with him? Or can it continue in this other way, I'm not sure. Can there be Indiana Jones without Harrison Ford, Will?
It'd be hard to replace that legacy character. I agree. It's hard to do that without him. To recast him to someone to look like him, it would be really hard. But I do think in terms of comics and stories and books and video games, we can capture that image. I think there's a wealth of stories to tell of the adventures of Indiana Jones. All the stuff, like his legend was before him, even before Raiders of the Lost Ark. He was known. He's a professor. People knew who he was. That was just you start in the middle of the story. just like George Lucas did with Star Wars. There's a lot that happened before then. There's a young Indiana Jones storyline and TV show. You could recast with a younger one because you look different. But I don't know. It's hard to do it without him. It might land maybe later. But I think there's a wealth of stories to find a way to share this. So you're saying that God showed up in this video game? Like God shows up? Or just like the legend of the storytelling of it?
Yeah, you don't see God. It's it's just told to you. That's how the Great Circle exists, because God made it for Noah to get the animals. Yeah, but you do see these giants because things are fun to fight in games. That was my thing. Is you'll never replace Harrison Ford, but this felt just as much like I'm living an Indiana Jones adventure as anything. And that's where I'm like, I like this. I like this continuation where I can keep seeing more stories in the games. But also, like it was a little bit weird, right? Because like this is the same old, same old. I'm fighting Nazis. I'm fighting, the Russians. I'm fighting, the same old kind of thing. But at the same time, the stuff they did new, I'm like, I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I like that. There's real giants in Indiana Jones. Like, I don't know, because like it seems like most people are unaware of the supernatural stuff in this. Like it happens once in a while. It's like some weird, we're not sure how it happened, and then like that final boss fight, the guy's just has superpowers, and of course the thing eventually he can't handle it all, and it is what kills him, because that's how all Indiana Jones movies end.
Well, there is a supernatural aspect, whether it's Raiders or even the Last Crusade, and you just talked about Temple Doom, your favorite one. There's supernatural things that happen of like hearts being ripped out and done. I don't know. I think there's a supernatural element of like, oh my gosh, whether it was aliens or a dial of destiny and time travel. There's definitely supernatural stuff that happens in the Indiana Jones world, even though he's a man of science and archaeology and there for the history of it all. There's definitely some supernatural metaphysics going on that you're kind of like, you can lean into. So the idea of, giants might be something else, but then, there was also aliens on one, and there was also someone being healed by a chalice. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they've done weird stuff before. I think what it was is like this just felt so, because we did travel the whole globe. It felt like the whole world was at stake, and I'm like, it's Indiana Jones. Like it's not actually at stake. I know what happens, and also why would this never be brought up again? Why wasn't India like, oh no, I got this fight. I've fought Nephilims before. Like why did that never come up?
That's a weird biblical pull. That's a weird biblical pull for a video game.
Yeah, Joe just like, oh no, I've beat a few Nephilim. But just doesn't bother mentioning that during any of these other fights we've seen in the movies. Like, I don't know, man. I might be, bragging about that one a little bit.
Yeah.
Catholic Church should probably be afraid of Harrison Ford. He could just straight up beat your Nephilim.
Well, and I also think that's that element, the same way, like within like the Marvel universe, or whenever you have somebody who's like quote unquote man of science or woman of science, and they're skeptic towards the supernatural, and they've seen big supernatural things happen in the universe. In the next story, they still act that way. You're kind of like, dude, that seems like my world would be rocked. Like, why would he be surprised that a chalice could heal somebody, or the dial of destiny? Like, he's seen a lot of crazy stuff. So be open to like the possibility of these things happening.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the things I feel like they actually did good in the Star Wars sequel series that we like to not mention most of the time.
Right. Mm-hmm. I like it.
That Ford showed up and was like, sorry, all of his characters are Harrison Ford. Yeah, it just is what it is. You know, he showed up and was like, it's all real, and it's like, oh, okay, like that makes sense. Instead of him being like, I'm still not sure about this Force thing, like that wouldn't have made sense. So
yeah, I like that. The whole like it's all true, all this stuff. The conversion of Han Solo to skeptic, I've never seen anything in the universe, blah blah blah, to now like yeah, I've seen lots of stuff. It's all true, or even look at somebody say that's not how the Force works. What are you thinking? Like I've seen my best friend do this. So I think Indy, but yeah, I love that shit. Oh man, that character is so good. Indy's in my top 10 favorite characters of all time. So there's a wealth of storytelling you could happen. There's some tropes you want to keep. There's some adventure, like a James Bond movie or a Mission Impossible.
I like that the boss defeated himself. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
I can't wait till my Indiana Jones poster will be on this wall behind me, and all will be right in the world again. But I like where you're going with it. I like the idea of him sticking around. I struggle a little bit, as all things, where I'm like, do I want to see more new, or do I want to just be happy with what we have? It's a hard line. It's a hard line. But I'm happy to do it with Dr. Jones personally. So I will complain every new entry and then be thrilled about it by the time the next entry comes out that I can complain about, because that's what good fans do.
And we'll do it here in a little bit.
Oh yeah.
We'll keep this train. That's what fans do. I mean, when you're a super fan of something, if they don't do exactly what you want with the stories in your head or handle character, you're kind of close to it. And so, you have it's natural to have your gripes.
Yeah. Well, we are going to talk about another Harrison Ford film, though.
Here he goes.
Here we are. Captain America: Brave New World. I don't know if I can say how much I loved this personally.
Okay.
We'll get into that in a minute. First, do you want to spoiler everybody? Spoiler. You heard the word enough. Will, break down the plot. What happens in Captain America: Brave New World?
Okay. So Brave New World is almost an immediate sequel to the Falcon and the Winter Soldier Disney Plus TV show series streaming. So Sam is Captain America. He has a new sidekick, the Falcon. There's been a presidential election who happens to be Thaddeus, and Harrison Ford, because of actors dying and passing away and bringing on new ones, he's stepped into a recasting. Talk about recasting Indiana Jones. Well, recasted Thaddeus, and so you have a new president and new. I guess you can't say immediate sequel, but the time has passed, and so he's now leaning into being Cap and what that means for him, Captain America, and the world responding to someone who's not Steve Rogers being Captain America. But he's been brought in to stop something that's going on in so there's something that's, to explain the whole movie is going to be hard for me to do. I'm just going to say watch the movie, but there is political ramifications, and this superhero who literally wears an American flag being invited from the president of the United States to come be on their team, and has the hope of starting the Avengers again and working together to make the world a safer place. And of course, this Captain America, Sam, is skeptical what that would look like. Who's going to be in control after a big civil war among superheroes and a registration act. And when things go wrong or the government is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, are they going to listen to them or not? Who's going to be the one running the show or not? And so things escalate. It also ties into the first and original Incredible Hulk movie. That's not necessarily the MCU, but so if you haven't.
MCU.
Yeah, it's MCU. So I think they're leaning into a lot of different things. Help me out with this. I will say that, like, for someone going in cold, it is a solid Captain America, Jason Bourne action thriller movie. But if you haven't seen Incredible Hulk, the original one, the first one, if you haven't seen or the other, the Edward Norton one, or the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Disney Plus, I wonder how much you would be able to know what's going on in the backstory and some of this history.
Yeah,
I know I stumbled all over the place there.
I watched it. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just saying, go for it. Maybe you can sum up the plot in 2 minutes for folks that would help. But I would, how do you do that? But then talk about the intricacies of where this fits in the MCU. I'm kind of more prepared to do that.
Yeah. No, I watched it with my father-in-law, and he doesn't know most of the MCU stuff, didn't watch the show or anything, and he really enjoyed it. So that for me is a plus. If someone's able to watch it without all the other stuff and enjoy it, cool. There was definitely stuff, he was like, what was that weird thing in the ocean? He was like, I don't understand what happened to the one guy. Why is he keeps talking about how the government experimented on him? I was like, oh, it's something for the show. He's like, oh, okay. You don't need to know all that stuff. It's still I feel like it still makes sense. But it definitely does lean heavy into it, which is one of the things that I am really frustrated with fans of this movie. And Will said one of the things that's been frustrating me when we were talking the other day, because people are complaining a lot about stuff that they've been asking for. And that's what irritates me. I hear a lot of people like, well, you had to watch Eternals for this to make sense. Y'all have literally been constantly flooding the internet with, well, how did this thing die in the ocean? There's nothing that happened in the MCU about it. Well, now it's here and you're complaining about it. What do you mean?
Right.
Right. So it's just, there's so much stuff that I was like, what? The line that Will said that, or to me that other people said, is like, well, I wish it was braver and newer. And I'm like, well, I can't point to any time this has been done before in the MCU anyway.
Right.
And I feel like some of the moves they did, calling out both of our last presidents, also, and how the villain was really defeated, I thought it was really brave moves personally. I'm a big fan of them. But I want to hear your take. Like, I'm not just like responding to you. It's one of those. Evan shout out Adamantium. It's one of those like you hear like what all of the, I don't have good words for this. Toxic fans are saying online, and you don't want to put that on people who are like have genuine concerns. The same thing happened with the Lord of the Rings show that I'm having, Rings of Power. Same thing out with that. There's a lot of people with legitimate concerns, but anytime someone brought up concern, they got lumped in with the toxic fans that were like,
sure,
but there's no black elves. I was like, okay, let's not do that. Let's assume that the people have legitimate things.
Yeah.
I have exactly one gripe with this film, and that's it.
Well, I can't wait. We'll lure people to you'll save that for the end. I think for me, I did love how they pulled from the different threads of the MCU, whether it's Incredible Hulk, some other villains, Eternals, these world ramification stuff that's going on out there. They allude to that, like half the population was gone, now they're back, and they have a new world they have to establish. I like the fact that there's going to be more Avengers movies, so they lean into, we need to get the Avengers back together. What does that look like? I love Sam as Cap. I think he's a great character. He does great things. I like he has a new sidekick, a new Falcon that they can team up and do some things. As Evan talked about adamantium, I love that thread of, oh, I know that word that comes from the X universe. Oh boy, all right, I know who's connected to that. There's a Wolverine out there somewhere. Or how does this tie into this particular timeline and multiverse version of the Marvel universe that's not with the time variant authority. So I think I love the threads that they pulled. I guess for me, when I was like, man, I wish it would lean in harder to the braver and newer. There were some things here that I was like, it's a solid Captain America movie. He does a solid job. I had fun in this movie there. But I just wanted it to be braver when it comes to some of the political tensions and race, which was there, but I just want to take a step further. And then with the new, I'm glad it was fun, but I wanted to see them pull like even more ahead to what these next Avengers may look like. The end credits scene that I waited for, I was like, that's it. Just someone's like, oh, there's other worlds,
Yeah.
but we knew that. I was like, where's the cameo? Where's the like? This is what that could look like. Where we have a Thunderbolts movie, we have a Fantastic Four. I know Doctor Doom's coming right around the corner. They spoiled who Doctor Doom is at San Diego Comic-Con. And I was ready for them to build on that. Why do I have to wait another 3 years to what that, or 2 years, whatever? I was like, oh, not that I was expecting to see Robert Downey Jr. on this, but a little bit more braver and newer to turns like this is a grander MCU next phase that we're going to get into rather than what could have been, I think, another like streaming series on Disney Plus that would have been solid and fine. So that's kind of, I understand putting it back in the theater and get people in the seats. But for me, that's kind of where it was. And again, this is like B+, A-, movie that, you know, some of the editing I could pick, some of the CGI, some of the stuff. There's like, the tropes are there. I was like, oh, you know, I loved Red Hulk. I loved Harrison Ford as the president. Man, his acting was so good. When he passes away, I mean, he's in his 80s. That's going to happen. That's going to be a national tragedy. But I think he everybody was fantastic in this movie, except the main villain was a little somewhat subpar, a little bit for me, or could have been a little bit braver. I don't know. That's kind of where I was. So it's not that it wasn't a good movie. I just wanted to see them just go take one step further into that. But I understand if they wanted to play it somewhat safe for a general audience and they needed a win and they needed to do something. But yeah, I don't understand the critics who are like really hard on this. I think some of people are triggered by people with brown skin doing certain roles, and that's why you get like Rings of Power and this and some of the race swapping stuff on Spider-Man cartoons. People are like, oh, why are we doing this when that person? But anyway, representation is important. So there you go.
I mean, I have 3 running theories on my critics, and some people don't like it. One of the big ones is because Sam is black. But to address what you said first, though, I get the end credits. Like if I was grading the end credits, it would be a much lower score. But I don't hold the credits or the end credits stuff against.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because that's
fair.
You know, I'm gonna push back a little bit on your wish they were braver about the race thing, because they referenced it and they already told that story in the show. And I think in Brave New World, you don't rehash the same story. You don't rehash the same ideas. What I thought was really brave that they did do politically, not only did they call both presidents out, I'm going to get to that. I love that they told a message that made, I think, everyone uncomfortable if you bother thinking about it. And that's part of one of my 3 theories. One of my theories is Sam is black. People didn't like that. One of my theories is people didn't like that they didn't say the message you wanted it to. You know, a lot of people in my camp went to this hoping that there was going to be something about the Superhuman Registration Act and, you know, immigration or one of these progressive points, DEI, something that we really care about, like, and it wasn't there. And I think a lot of people were disappointed that the message I wanted wasn't there, right? And I think a lot of people on the other side was like, oh, well, you know, they didn't show that secretly, you know, Republicans are good, or, you know, they didn't show any kind of thing. What they did instead was make both sides upset. And I also had to think about it. Like, part of this is because the movie was being created a long time ago. So addressing DEI and stuff like that, there was no way they were going to do that. It was already made. Yeah. But what they did is say, hey, look, here is one side of this. And I think, for better or worse, they showed where the country is divided. They didn't show who was which side. They showed the country is divided, and at the end of the day, it is more important that we look past these things and come together. And that is a thing that makes both sides really mad right now. Republicans don't want to hear, well, maybe you should hear the other side out about DEI. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to look for the good in the other, as Sam Wilson and our podcast says. Yes, Sam Wilson endorsed our annual theme of looking for the good in the other. Thank you, Captain America, for endorsing
duly noted.
the show. But, you know, people, they don't want to hear that. And a lot of people on my side are like, well, I don't want to hear that maybe there's good reasons people are concerned about immigration and government spending. We don't want to hear that. We want to be mad at the other side and fight. And I think we have
Yeah.
a lot of really good reasons to fight. I'm going to keep fighting. But I actually love that this movie said, we're going to be brave enough to say this message. It's going to actually just make everybody mad. And they said it. And I was like, man, okay. I'm not sure I agree
Yeah.
with you, but hey, you went for it. Also, the president thing, because there's not a lot to talk about it. What you do see is Harrison Ford very clearly is losing his. He's facing his finitude, as our good friend Aaron Simmons would say, and probably should not have been president, but did not want to step down. And they made
Yeah.
that very clear that that's what was happening. And you're like, okay, Disney. And then they were like, oh, also, this president's going to be responsible for an attack on the Capitol. And you're like, okay, Disney. I see what you did there. I see.
Yeah.
You get a little bit of both sides, but, you know.
And the choice to make him Red Hulk, I think, is a good choice. I like the villain part of that. The other things, I guess, for me, I know they created this movie and edited this movie and did all the hard work for this movie before the election last November, and it's going to have those overtones, and it's going to carry some weight for past choices they made in other movies, and try to like either rebrand it a little bit or bring you up to speed with that, or kind of move forward with those things in the larger world. For me, it is. I think the reason people it's getting some mixed reviews is, but it's hard not to watch this movie through the lens of what's going on in the last 3 weeks and the last month or two. And that's not the movie's fault, but it's kind of where we are as a nation, is where people are in their fandom and those kind of things. I guess for me, I have no problem with all those critiques, and things that you said are like, yeah, valid points. And you may convert me, you may change my opinion. I guess there was the braver and newer wanted to see the grand, here's your chance to do another phase of a larger MCU universe, which you did with some little points here and there, whether it's Eternals or Animanium or, mentioning getting the Avengers back together. I just want to see a little bit more collaboration, maybe a few cameos, maybe some bigger leaps to enlarging this universe moving forward. To there's going to be an Avengers Doomsday movie coming up. At some point, they're going to start filming in March, and so it's hard for me not to let go of the end credit scene. As hard of the choices of, I know it's not Avengers movie, it's a Cap movie, but man, you had Civil War, you had the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Those movies were so good, and I feel like this one was similar to those kind of storylines and plots, which is kind of different characters doing those roles, who maybe in some places did them a little better. And so I'm kind of like, that's why I give it a B plus. And I was like, wish it's a little braver, a little bit more, a little bit newer, and that's kind of weird. But overall, solid comic book movie, ready to move us forward. Those guys, and I will also say, I'm reading a book. I'm reading Martin Luther King Jr.'s final book before he was assassinated, called "Where Do We Go From Here?" And in this book, I was gifted this book from a friend, Matthew Brake, with Pop Culture and Theology. He Martin Luther King talks about like this kind of white backlash of like in their favor of the civil rights for seeing what was done to them on the Selma March. And people are like, we shouldn't unleash dogs on human beings or unleash police batons on people's heads. We don't want that. But when it's the next move for equality and like economic justice and housing and some of these real things that are going to affect people, he's like, but we aren't willing to go that far. You're willing to say like, let's not treat people like brutally, but where's the next step of seeing us as equals? And so me reading this book and then seeing this movie that had some messages there, but I was like, yeah, where's the next phase? We're okay with this phase of MCU movie telling, storytelling, the superhero tropes, and the three acts of how you tell a superhero movie. But then where's the next step of another phase of this? And that's kind of where I was when I saw this movie. But all your points are fair. That's kind of where I was mentally, philosophically, and what I'm consuming right now.
Yeah, I mean, all that's fair too. Yeah, and I also, thinking about like what's happening real time when you're watching this, it was hard not to hear him talk about he has to have this deal in the first 100 days, and you're also seeing Trump doing all of this stuff right now and for his first 100 days, and it's hard not to be like, what's funny is both, aggravated, like, oh, he's a villain, but also part of me is like, oh, that's right, even our villains are humans.
Mm.
Even Donald Trump, a lot of what he's doing is because he also knows that he has a finitude. I might disagree with his choices on why he's doing, what he's doing with that, but that's what he's facing. He's facing his finitude,
Yeah.
saying, "I need to be important." And to see that on a, through a different character that I don't look at, Donald Trump, I just see as bad guy, angry. Harrison Ford, it's hard for me not to want to justify all of his characters because he's Harrison Ford. And all of a sudden he's doing the same thing, and I'm like, oh, that's right. These guys are humans.
And I think
That's difficult.
I think how they move him into being human and with his daughter and hungry for his daughter. Like, part of me is like, all this could have been solved if he just got some therapy and had Sam as his counselor. Would have been, let's say, rather than like this unresolved conflict with your daughter. You're doing all this because of unresolved conflict with your daughter. Man, it would have been a lot cheaper for the country if you would have just gone and gotten some therapy. But I think those kinds of things, they did a good job making him more human and try to not justify these moves, but to see them to see why he made the choices he made. And
So
yeah.
The other stuff I want to get at though was some of the stuff that there was some similarities that I think were important that they did to say, hey, this is still Captain America. I'm going to stand again. We're going to keep doing. I could do this all day, but I'm not going to say that line, right? You have some of that. You have some of these things where it's like mind control, a very different kind of mind control. It's hard to compare it to what happened to Winter Soldier, but some people are doing it, and I think they just don't understand science. So they're like, this is the same thing, but whatever. So you see some of these things, you see some of these villains returning, some of the similar concepts, but a completely different story. All the people are like, oh, this is the same old stuff. And I'm like, okay, but wait. When you guys complain about the MCU formula, and I ask you what that is, what you tell me it is Iron Man fights bad Iron Man, comedic sidekick. This was not Cap fighting bad Cap. This was Cap fighting the Hulk.
Yeah.
This was the Hulk being controlled by a different entity who's not even a secret agent. So that's not even something that's been done in Marvel before. It's something from within America controlling the president. You're like, this is not something MCU has done even a little bit before. So that's where I'm like, story-wise, what? Yeah, there's some similarities, but that's like saying, oh, well, this was a political thriller, so it's the exact same movie as 007. Like what? No, that's some political thriller is just a genre. Superhero movies are a genre. Like some stuff, it's gonna be the same, but that plot has not been touched before like this.
And to your no, go ahead. I was just gonna lean into the leader a little bit. We have like the villain as the leader, Stearns. You have the president and like mind control, manipulation. Who's in control, their actions or not. That's something to be played with. And I think the same way that people fear the mutants and Professor X and that kind of thing, like who's really in charge of controlling these things. And we think about like social media and who's controlling our data and our algorithms, and are we being mind controlled or manipulated in these certain ways? I think there's room for those things. I just, I don't know. I guess I went in and through the present context of what's going on and ready for another phase of Marvel Universe, bigger, better, wider, less extensive, and didn't quite as much. So I guess some of my expectations there were a bit. But all in all, I'll say I can't wait to get to like your gripe. I can't wait to hear what that gripe is. Keep going.
My third thing. So my third theory why critics are being buttholes. So could be because he's black. I think a lot of it is that, honestly. I think some of it is because it didn't say the message that they went in wanting. The third one is I think they're uncomfortable with the tension of the process. Sam was never fully Captain America. He is in the process of becoming Captain America. Harrison Ford wasn't the Hulk, they'll say, a whole time. We didn't get just a bunch of Red Hulk. He was in the process of becoming, not just the Red Hulk, of becoming truly who Thaddeus Ross was meant to be.
Yeah.
You don't you do have cool fight scenes. It happens. There's a big fight scene. The resolution of the fight scene isn't some awesome new move. And it's not what I predicted. I predicted a really cool speech because that's how Captain America do. Nope. What was it? Vulnerability. Plain, simple vulnerability. He doesn't stand up after, they both have that big blowout fight and go, well, now let me give you an inspirational speech. He says, here I am. I don't think you want to do it. He just is vulnerable. And I think that's something people just don't like. There's a lot of tension there. There's a lot of unresolved tension here of like, wait, no, you're supposed to punch him. You're supposed to give a cool speech. Nope. I'm just going to show myself for myself, and I'm going to give faith in the other, that there is something good in the other that will come out if I choose to be vulnerable. And I'm like, oh, holy cow, man. Like, to me, I was like, that moment, it was so big because it was so small. The faith of the mustard seed faith stuff. And I'm like, that. I don't know, man. I get excited.
Yeah,
about
good time. Yeah. And among the cherry blossoms and the trees. And what are you rooted in? Yeah.
My cherry blossom tea. And it says new life. That's my tattoo from my
now I see. It is all about Joshua
because of the cherry
vibes.
blossoms in DC. So I have a lot of personal connection to this too. Yeah. Because me and my mom had a big thing at the cherry blossoms with DC. And after my accident, I had some scarring on my arm, and I got it covered up with cherry blossoms that represent new life and the Greek word for new life. And here we have this movie. And Harrison Ford's given a chance of new life because of Sam's vulnerability.
I love that, Josh. No apologizing at all. You should not apologize. Embrace it. Those are good points. And I love that connection you made, and I can see why you would love that ending and connect with it and think it's awesome. That's very special. And I when I was watching that, I was thinking of your conversation with Ryan, and I was like, hey, Joshua predicted this right. He's doing I did see it as an inspiring speech, and it wasn't a long monologue goes on for 5 minutes, but he made a speech. He didn't fight with a super punch or taking the super soldier serum or the Green Hulk showing up to save the day. Like that's not what happened. It was him being vulnerable and giving a speech going, I see the good in you, which again, one of our themes. I love it that, this is all about Joshua's vibe of whole church and systematic ecology. Why we do what we do, seeing the good in the other and creating healthy relationships and conversations around these things. That is what Sam and Cap embodied there with that shield. And yeah, he doesn't have a gun or laser beams out of his eyes or super soldier. He has a shield for defense and some wings. And he learns how, to I guess calm this monster down. How do you calm this monster? You touch to the pinpoint of who they are and what their real trauma is, and to be vulnerable with the other person. Maybe in the monsters in our lives, we can take the parable and message of this story of how do we take down the monster? How do we calm down the Hulk? Maybe it's being vulnerable. Maybe it's speaking truth to power, but also the truth within them, which is overpowering them and helping them see through a different lens. I think that is a fantastic measure. And I love, and so when I thought about your conversation with Ryan, I was like, Joshua caught it. It's not a big weapon or a super punch. It is a conversation. It's a speech. It's understanding the other that helped win the day. So I thought it was excellent.
All right. A few more nerdy things. I was actually really shocked. I thought it was going to end up being the scroll. I thought that's what the reveal was going to be, not mind control. I was convinced that the leader, I knew he was going to be in it. I thought it was going to be like a quick cameo for all of us who grew up watching the Incredible Hulk TV series, the little animated series. I was like, oh, this is going to be great. Then he was the main guy. I was like, oh, that was fun. I had a lot of fun with that. The other thing, so we should have done this when we summarized the plot, I guess. But like the thing is, what you see is like the American people, Captain America, they don't trust systems anymore. And that's true. We saw that with the election. American people do not trust systems anymore. And then you have Ford's like, oh, here's the system. Here's how we're going to play into that. And that's kind of the two sides. You don't really have Republican or Democrat. They don't do that, which is probably smart for multiple reasons. One, it would hurt their sales. And two, the message kind of sticks to just one place when you do that. When you let it be a little bit vaguer, I feel like the message gets to be a little bit more open. Hey, whether you trust the systems because you think, hey, man, a good system will help us feed the hungry, or you're like, actually, the system screwed us over 100 times. You can still see the good in the other. So I liked that there. And I just want to point out the other thing that I thought was a lot of fun. Because of this, Sam keeps going, oh, maybe I should have took the serum. And he feels like he's not there, right? He's like, I'm not Steve. He's not. And everyone went in this movie going, oh, well, that's not Steve. So that was kind of fun that he just said it for those who didn't watch the TV show. And, the thing that was cool about that, though, is that's like not only is like just relatable, like we're all sometimes like I'm like, man, I talked to somebody at work and I'm like, Will would have done that better. I'm not Will, you know, and we all do that a little bit of comparison of like, oh man, I'm not there yet. We're all in the process of becoming. This is the Josh Patterson movie, apparently. But, and I think what was cool is Bucky's cameo. He showed up. We weren't expecting him, and
Loved it.
what I
Good cameo.
loved is he almost verbatim said what I said in our comic book catch-up episode. He said Steve was a symbol of hope, something we could look to give us hope. You are the symbol of what we can aspire to. And if we watch our comic book catch-up,
Nice.
that's what I said. I said Steve he's hope, he's a symbol, but he's not relatable. Sam is relatable. He's someone we can aspire to. And I'm like, oh man, Bucky ripped. I said it under my breath. I was like, Bucky ripped off my speech. And then he goes, yeah, thank the speechwriters for that. And I was like, I'm the speechwriter.
I love that. Yeah, that was a good cameo. And I know, Bucky's going to be featured in another movie this summer. And so maybe there'll be some more tie-ins there. They allude to him being elected or running for Congress, those kinds of things. And
yeah, that was
and
cool.
I like that grander stuff. I will say another thing I liked is I loved Ruth. I love this Black Widow, who from a different thing is like his the present security. I loved her character. She was so small and tiny next to all of them, but yet packed a big punch. That is a new character that you could bring in. Maria Hill's out of the picture. All these other things, Shields out of the picture. She's a new person that I love bringing in as a newer character but alluded to as trained as an assassin / ninja / Black Widow's not around, but we have one who is trained just like her. So I love that.
Yeah, and I'd be remiss if we moved on without saying Joaquin Torres was phenomenal. That the actor who played him was great. Having him step into the Falcon role, just like the comics, you're like, oh, that was a lot of fun. It was just good fun.
Yeah.
Okay, rating it. Will, I'll let you go first because I still have to share my one gripe before we move on.
Okay, you're not gonna share your gripe before the ratings?
Oh, no, I'm gonna rate it and then say why my rating is because of the one gripe.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. I'm gonna say we're doing 1 to 10.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna do 7.90.
Ooh. I texted my friend as soon as this was over. 9.9999999 out of 10.
Wow.
That's how I feel. And it is literally only because the leader's whole power is being super smart. He's got gamma radiation brain. And he's like, oh, probability. And they never explain, like, why didn't he see Sam as a probable thing that could have hindered him? Like it was like his whole thing is supposed to be super smart. And I just don't think they played that well enough. I think the actor acted really well. I liked how everything went down. And I like that it's kind of implied that what happened is Sam is more good than what your average person would probably be. And I think that's what broke it, is he's actually just that genuinely good of a person, and that broke the probabilities. But they never said it. They never explained it. So there was always a little bit of me that's like, man, the leader, his whole thing is like super smart. And you guys just look like, he just couldn't figure out Sam. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, even though
what?
No matter how smart you are, nobody's without their blind spots. And no matter what you can see and perceive and all possibilities, there's something blocking or shading your perception or whatever, whether it's, the Emperor not being able to see the good in Darth Vader or some of those things, like what is it that's preventing you from seeing your blind spot that you have in the world? And so I think when it comes to politics and superheroes, in this movie, I think that's something to, what are our blind spots? How do we enlarge that? The leader had his blind spots, and I another conversation, a little bit more development. They could have addressed that, and I agree with you. That would have been a little bit more helpful.
Sentences. They could have done like 2 or 3 sentences to kind of explain. Oh man, I just didn't think anybody would actually do that. That's so improbable. Something.
Or even the end credit scene. Go down there and he was like, I miss seeing you as a part of this because this is here, and you better get ready because there's a larger world. But we already knew there are larger worlds. We knew there's more worlds. They know that there's a multiverse out there.
They even could have done a nod to what you wanted, to be braver about the race thing and point out that so much of our computers and AI are generated around the white man's world that it's hard for AI to write in the voice of a black person. That's still true. And that's one of those things. Our computer systems are systemic racism built in because white people are making it all. And they could have played on that, like, oh man, my probabilities actually are just of a
Yeah.
different world. Like there's this disconnect in our worlds, and they could have done something with that. But
Okay,
anything,
after
there's so many
hearing
things they
you
could have
talk
done.
about this movie, I'll move it up from 7.9 to 8.0. After hearing your conversation and how much you love it, and the mustard
Oh
seed and the
man.
trees and the conversation. Okay, I'll move it up
Okay. All right.
to an 8. To an 8.
Well,
You convinced
let's
me.
let's move on to something even more in your world. Like I feel like Cap, Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones, like that's like my main things. I am reading this. This isn't one of my main things though. This is one of your main things is comic
Yeah.
books and Doctor Doom. What is One World Under Doom? What are we talking about, Will?
Okay, yeah, I know we don't have a lot of time here, so I'm gonna do this. So, all right, Marvel and DC, they love these big events and time books. They have their books, their team books, their individual superhero books, but every now and then, sometimes more often than they should, they do these big tie-in events to help you or lure you to buy other comic books that are part of this main company-wide event. Well, not too long ago, there was one of those called Blood Hunt, where the entire world was darkened and attacked by the god of vampires, and Blade was possessed by this supernatural being that possessed everybody. And so all the heroes had to come together under the dark of night and vampires taking over the entire world. Doctor Strange was in a position where he needed to make a sacrifice, and Doctor Doom tricked him into passing on the mantle of Sorcerer Supreme to Doctor Doom to save the day. And it did. They saved the day. Oh, great. They got rid of the vampires. Oh, yeah. But the new status quo is Doctor Doom is now the Sorcerer Supreme. Well, it's been dormant for like 4 months. Nobody knows which he's going, just kind of hiding out in Latveria. And we're like, oh, isn't he like Sorcerer Supreme? Well, in this event, One World Under Doom, there's a mass. Dr. Doom takes over every single device and technology and news media and just announces to the world, hey, I know what's better for you. I'm now Emperor of the world. I'm Sorcerer Supreme. I'm Doom Supreme. I am the one who's going to be Emperor. So it's what's best for you. So just accept it. And you're like, oh, okay. Well, is he going to heal everything? Well, in this comic, the heroes are like, we've been here before. We've done this before. Dr. Doom's trying to take over the world before. What do we do? How do we stop this? Even when other world dictators and presidents and governments are like supposedly under Doom's umbrella. So that's this event. Dr. Doom will save you. And it's hard not to read this comic book through the lens of present day political stuff, as with the movie and what's going on. And so that's what's going on. It's not only Dr. Doom as a supervillain, one of my favorite villains of all time, but he also is Sorcerer Supreme and has a lot of power. So that's what's going on. And then what's going on, I think what Marvel's doing smartly, the next big Avenger movie is Avengers Doomsday, which they're going to bring in Dr. Doom as the villain. We'll see how they bring Doom in or not to the Fantastic Four movie or not. If they don't, golly, how are they going to do this? But anyway, this is Marvel's big event, and it's a crossover. It's going to touch all the books. So if you're collecting X-Men, it's going to affect it. If you're collecting Avengers, it's definitely going to do it. Captain America, it's going to have its hand in all the Marvel comic books, because how are you going to stop One World Under Doom with a big creative team? And Ryan North, who's writing Fantastic Four, who's been really great, is the author on this book. I like the first book. It was a good setup. Art was great. R.B. Silva, I think, is the artist. And so that's what's going on. And Marvel does this great when they have like trying to get people who have seen the movies go into the comic shops and buy these stories. But that's why I was a little disappointed they didn't allude to Doctor Doom or something else to say like, oh, this is what's coming up next. Go hear what's going on in Marvel Universe. There's braver tie-ins. Maybe that was a little bit my expectations that weren't met and brings it down. But questions there. You're reading this book. You didn't really like Blood Hunt as much. Is that what you said?
I really disliked Blood Hunt. It was boring and convoluted, and I was like, this just the thing was, there's so many stories I was following that were good, and then Blood Hunt happened and it just wrecked all these really good stories, and I'm like, man, I would have rather not had this and finished the stories I was reading.
And that's the critique of these events. Like, some of these creators have a good story arc for Daredevil or Fantastic Four or for Moon Knight, but then a company-wide events happening with Marvel, and so those creators have to tie it in to this event, and it kind of steamroll. Oh, Jason Aaron was rolling great with Avengers, and now we have to like pull it over here to another event that I
Yeah.
can't. What about the other storyline he didn't get to finish? They got to jump into this one. So
Yeah, that was my thing.
anyway,
Jed McKay's Doctor Strange. It was like such a good, and then it was like, oh, and then like also Blood Hunt kind of just seemed like it was set up for this, and this is like I'm not discounting it yet. I enjoyed the first issue. It was a little camp, but I enjoyed it. Captain America outsmarted Doom. You know, not Tony Stark, not Reed Richards. Cap said, "Wait a minute, what about this date?" Yeah, real Zemo would have known that. And you're like, yeah, that's right. Cap saves the day. But I always love a good Cap moment. But I don't know, man. It feels a little clickbaity. Like, oh, what if Doctor Doom is the Sorcerer Supreme now? And you're like, okay, so you're just desperate for people to read your comics, and you did a lot of maneuvering to kind of set this up so that it made sense, so that you could have a comic that was titled this right around the time the movies are doing this. And this feels clickbaity.
But that's it. I mean, that's definitely the lure and the ups and downs of being a comic book collector is you're really loving something and they reboot with a new number one, which is clickbaity, or a new creative team, which is clickbaity, and then tie it into the movie, or they make the character look exactly like the character in the movie, or find the voice of Robert Downey Jr. for Tony Stark rather than Tony Stark, or Hawkeye's costume is changed because it looks like the movie. Clickbaity, or they put them on the cover. So it's definitely clickbaity, but now understand the industry. How are you going to get attention? How are you going to get clicks? How are you going to keep paying your creators and churn out these stories and make a profit? They got to find ways to do that. I love Doom. I like the idea of this of one world under Doom. I feel like we've done this before in Secret Wars not too long ago with Hickman and
that's awesome.
and I loved that story arc, and I collected every single issue of that, even the spinoffs, because I loved it so much. So this one, here we go again. But again, like your question from the very beginning of this podcast, are there new stories to tell? Are we just rehashing old stories? Most of the time we kind of are. And some connect and some don't.
The Bible told us this. If you read Ecclesiastes, there's nothing new under the sun. Dr. Doom's going to be ruler of the world again. It was in the Bible. But no, I actually am. I love Doom, so I'm excited to see more of him. I liked the art in this a lot. There's two Caps, and Doctor Strange has to be pretty heavily involved for this to work out. There's a good chance Blade makes some appearances. So I'm like, a lot of characters I really enjoy are part of this. The art's good. I didn't mind the story. The only reason I feel like it felt campy is because it was doing it for people who don't know everyone's name. So you have people in the battlefield going, Captain America, what about this? Iron Man, what about this? And I'm like, okay, that's not a thing. Like if we're in a fight, I'm not like Pastor Will Rose, look to your left. It's like, yo, Will on your left. It's not Pastor Will Rose. It's but
yeah, and there's the comic trope of how how do you tell the story? Every comic is going to be somebody's first comic, and so how do you not over-explain but then explain? A lot of the X-Men, Chris Claremont, the first 3 pages of him rehashing everything they've done in the last year because he's scared that they're not going to understand what's going on because it's their first first comic book that they're reading. So anyway, is how do you introduce a new number one, new comic, new story arc to perhaps new readers? I don't know.
Yeah. But I'm excited to see where they go. I think it's fun. I do like all the political tie-ins. And with comics, unlike movies, they're being pretty intentional about it, I think, of look, why it doesn't make sense that all these people are falling in line, does it? And you're like, it really doesn't. And yeah. I actually enjoy when they do that, because comic books have always been political. And I will continue to beat that drum till I'm dead.
You are correct.
First comic, punching Hitler before we're in the war. That's how we do it. That's how comics do. But with that, Will, for these episodes, we had to pick one IP that we discussed already, something we mentioned. If you had to pick any of the things we talked about today, what would be your top recommendation for those who haven't seen or played or whatever it?
Go on YouTube and watch a bunch of Saturday Night Live skits. No, just kidding. Like, I love Saturday Night Live. I love those things. I will say go see Captain America. Go see the movie. Go have fun. Try not to have all your baggage and expectations not wrapped up in this before you go in. But it's hard because it's hard not to see this movie through the lens of what's going on in our present context and politics and world and what you're wrestling with and you're scared of. I totally understand this. But go to this movie, see it, support it. Comic book movies aren't going to stop anytime soon. Let's go have fun. Go get some popcorn. It's a good, it's a good old time, and strap in. It's a ride.
Yeah. Captain America would be my favorite of all the things, but I'm not going to recommend my favorite thing because I don't think that it's for everyone. I understand people don't love political thrillers the way I do. I think anyone could enjoy the Indiana Jones game, even if you're not really a gamer. It's not like a gamer's game. It's more of a story lover's game. If you love story, this game's for you. If you're like, oh man, I want like great gameplay, it's not the best gameplay. Story's pretty cool though, so I think it's worth your time. I will recommend Indiana Jones in the Great Circle.
Fun.
Yeah. So with that, guys, if you're on your laptop, please remember to rate and review our show on Podchaser or on Good Pods, whatever's more convenient for you. Really, doesn't matter to us. They both two are what helps the algorithms the most, though. So we appreciate you guys doing that. But if you're on your phone, Apple Podcasts and Spotify also let you rate, review, and comment, and that helps a lot too for those who use those apps, which are most people. So appreciate it. Again, we're going to thank one of our supporters from Apple Podcasts, Captivate, or Patreon, Jonathan Augustin. We really do. We love you so much, man. You are the coolest. And we're gonna leave this up for the rest of the episode. Look at that. Thank you, Jonathan Augustin.
Do it.
If you guys want your own shout out, remember you too can support our show for $3 a month on one of those three platforms: Apple Podcasts, Captivate, or Patreon. We appreciate you. We appreciate your support financially, or just by viewing, watching, listening, and interacting with us. We just like having friends. And remember, guys, we are all a chosen people, a geekdom of priest. Later.